Hi guys, welcome to another episode of my YouTube channel. My name is Viv, and if this is your first time on this channel, you're welcome. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you can get more content like this. I'd like to know where you're watching this video from, what city and what part of the world you're in. On today's episode, I just wanted, I wanted us to be as interactive as possible, okay? Previous YouTube videos have been more about, just me talking. It gets boring sometimes. So yeah, I wanted us to have a conversation about trauma dumping. I'm going to be making use of ChatGPT to define what trauma dumping is. All right, so according to ChatGPT, trauma dumping is when someone shares very intense personal or traumatic experiences with another person in an inappropriate setting or without their consent, often suddenly, excessively, or repetitively. It differs from healthy sharing or seeking support in these ways. Now, these are the ways someone can actually dump trauma. No regard for the listener's emotional boundary occurs in non-therapeutic, often casual situations during a first date or in a group chat. It may leave the listener feeling overwhelmed, helpless, or emotionally burdened. Most times, emotionally drained. It's important to distinguish between seeking support and trauma dumping. Supportive conversations involve mutual respect, consent, and emotional safety for both parties. So now there's a conversation that was sparked in a group that I happen to belong. This was a group from my secondary school. Now I went to a military boarding school, or would I say a boarding school that was owned by the military, and there was a lot of brutalization, a lot of punishment, a lot of bullying, that was happening at the time. If you happen to know about me, if you knew about me, if you ever had met me while I was in secondary school, you would find out that so much has not actually changed about me. I have always been against brutalization. I have always been against bullying. I have never, consented to any of these things. And my ideas of parenting, the ideology I have behind disciplining a child is completely different. Why? Because I was constantly bullied when I was much younger. Not anymore. When I was much younger, I was bullied a lot. And, I had to deal with a lot of people who had insecurities that were projecting their insecurities. Now, back to the topic of discussion. I'm sure you'll be asking, like, how does this relate to trauma dumping? Now, imagine you went through a very difficult time in your teenagehood, right? And then you evolved, you became an adult, you got disciplined, and you have a child, and it's time for you to parent that child. You wouldn't know that you're actually dumping your trauma on that child it's like you're transferring your trauma. Dumping, because this person did not give you consent to do that. So basically, you're transferring the aggression and the traumas of many years on that child without even knowing that this is what you're doing. So you'd see a child who is still in the developmental stages, and most of the time these children are seeking attention. Most of the time these children just want somebody they can talk to. They want their parents' presence. Now, when you would see a baby. Now, if a baby wants attention, what does the baby do? The baby cries. It cries for attention. It cries when it's hungry. It cries when it needs to be changed. It cries when it needs to sleep. A baby cries for almost no reason, like almost all the reasons you could possibly think of. Like, you can't, even for crying sake, a baby will just cry just because he wants you to hold on to him or her. Now, it's not very different. It's not very different with children. It's not very different with adults and even teenagers. When a teenager needs attention, they act in different ways. It could be them throwing tantrums, which is like the least of all. It could even be, nowadays you'd see people who would be seeking validation on social media, and they could seek validation in so many ways, right? What do you guys think about my outfit? Yes, there's the positive, wanting to grow your feed content, wanting to make money out of it. But if you have this constant need to be desired, to be wanted, there's so many ways people project these things. I don't want to go into the details, but you would see an adult who's supposed to be acting in a very mature way, acting like a child. Once you see that childish aspect coming out of that person, that is, it's the part of that person that actually wants attention. It's the part of the person that needs to be approved. Oh, you guys see me, I am here, right? So in essence of all of this, I think we should make a very deliberate attempt to parenting, raising children. You wouldn't want, there's this thing about Nigerians that I have noticed. Because you endured a certain level of hardship, or you suffered, you feel like, oh no, if I don't teach my children how to do this thing, that if my children do not suffer, then how are they even my children? If my children do not go through the hell that I went through, I would have spoiled them. It's a lie. Let me tell you what you need to understand about this mindset. That is a poor man's mindset. When you have leveled up in life and you have chosen the path that you want to follow, you are very intentional about what your children experience. You're living a life, because the life you're living now, the life of luxury that you're living, is because you didn't have it when you were at a certain age, and you want your children to enjoy that and not have to go through, the hardship that you went through. Like, what is the use of going through hardship, and then you bring children into this world and they have to go through hardship as well? You might as well just keep these children in your scrotum sacs or inside your ovaries. You might as well just keep them locked in there, because there's a lot of suffering in this world, and it is very unfair that you start dumping your trauma on people who do not even deserve these things. You dump your trauma on the children because you have not fully healed as an adult. As an adult, you still have a part of you, that is still crying out for help, a part of you that actually needs to be healed, a part of you that needs reassurance, that needs, I don't know if you've ever heard of anxious attachments. All these attachment styles are as a result of how someone developed as a teenager or as a child. Now, why do you want your children to have to go through the trauma, that the same trauma or even worse that you went through, because you need them to, turn out like you? Now, let me ask you this question. Are you happy with your life? Do you really think you turned out great? Or you just think you turned out great? Because if you're really happy with your life and you feel like everything is, everything is wonderful, everything is blossoming, when you have kids, you don't want them to experience what you experienced very many years ago. I would like your inputs. I mean, I'm open to hearing what you have to say about this, because it's becoming a thing in Nigeria where, people use a lot of slurs like, these Gen Z people, this, that, they're so rebellious. Jesus was rebellious in his time. It's in the Bible. Go back and read your Bible. The reason they killed Jesus was because they didn't like him very much. Because if Jesus was really a people pleaser, he would not have died on the cross. He wouldn't have even died at all. They wouldn't have murdered him. Jesus was killed because he was a non-conformist. He was a rebel. It's there in the Bible. It's there in the scriptures. He was not like everybody else. An adulteress that was caught with an adulterer, right? Because somebody was sleeping with her. She was not sleeping with herself. And Jesus saved this woman from all the men that were going to kill her. I can tell you for a fact that I'm very, very, very sure that more than half of those men who wanted to stone her had slept with her. So Jesus saved that woman and she became his follower. And not just that, there were the tax collectors, there were people that were considered sinners that Jesus was helping, healing, and he was not in the synagogue very much. He wasn't going to church very much. You can read your Bible. Jesus was not a Christian. That's a topic for another day. But then you have a problem with Gen Zs who are tending towards Jesus. It's not like these Gen Zs are not doing well. More than half of the Gen Zs I know are doing better than millennials. More than half of the Gen Zs I know are tech founders. You know, they are just non-conformists. They are not going to go with the status quo, and they are making, you know, these guys they are doing things. And you as a millennial, as a Gen X, Gen whatever, you that they gave birth to you in 1950 something, 1960 something, 1970 something, 1980 something, what have you been able to contribute to the society? What have you done? But you have a problem with Gen Zs. Gen Zs are not your problem. Go and look at yourself in the mirror and tell yourself, I need to transform, and I need to work on myself, and I need to heal. So that's it. Thank you guys for this few minutes that I have taken your time. Let us sit down and actually reflect on what is important and how we can transform the society by actually transforming our own families and communities. Thanks for your time and thanks for watching. See you again in another episode.